welcome to everyone deserves a chance. This is the podcast for entrepreneurs. It's for real estate people and for anybody and everybody that is looking for financial independence. Today, we have the honor of having Sorin Gorgan. He's a guest in my podcast today. He's a real estate investor, and he's willing to share his journey with us today. Welcome, Sorin.
Hey, Silvius, thanks for having me back in your podcast. Really enjoy our first dialogue, although it was in Romanian, and the audience probably it's not it's not complete. So I was happy when you mentioned that you like to have me back to go in English this time. So
Yes.
really appreciate it.
I thank you so much. This is the second time we're meeting. Indeed, first time we did a conversation in Romanian, where I wasn't even thinking through too much on the details, and I just wanted to get to know you better. I wanted to get you a little bit of exposure into my community and my circle of trust. But right now, I am definitely ready. I know the value that you bring into the table, and I'm so excited because today we are definitely talking about structure. We're talking about how you started your real estate journey and the interesting model that you're using. Because to me, it's non-conventional, how you started moving into the house to house and fixing and all that. So in few words, can you please tell us about yourself? How did you end up in this situation of being a real estate investor?
Sure. So I actually won the green card lottery back in 2005, and without English or any knowledge of what US is, I just moved to this beautiful country. So in the first couple of years of being here, I bounced around just working odd jobs, anywhere from Sam's Club changing tires department to church being the janitor and constructions. So obviously, because when you don't speak the language, nobody, even though I graduated mechanical engineer in Romania, in Cluj, nobody will offer you a mechanical engineer job without experience and speaking the language. But within a year or two, then I kept applying for my dream job. I applied to everything that was around me and landed a mechanical engineer job at one of the companies. And the next 4 years, from 2005 to 2009, my wife now, girlfriend at that time, was still in school back in Romania doing accounting, and I was by myself here just spending the money, changing cars. I had no idea about credit cards, interest, loans. My first car deal was an amazing deal. I was offered a 17% interest rate, and I thought it's awesome, and I took it, and I paid the full year, made the payments, and I wanted to pay the car off. It was only $3,000, and I was told, "Oh, you still owe $3,000." And I was confused. What do you mean? Because I paid for 1 year. And that's when I learned that actually I pay the interest, interest only on the car. So the 4 years was more getting to know US, getting to know, hitting my head to the wall of interest, paying interest in credit cards, like no idea how the system worked. In Romania, we never had credit cards. I barely had like a bank account with, I don't know, $20 in it. It was very interesting experience. My wife was in Romania, visiting Romania every year, like just making the full fun part of the life, and had no idea about investing, and there was no savings. It was just getting a paycheck and like spending it, buying a nice laptop, buying like a nice D4 convertible. It was nice, but quickly, like after my wife actually graduated accounting in Romania, and then she decided to move in the US, applied for an MBA, moved here. Eventually, we got married in 2009, and that was the wake-up call. Like we decided that, hey, we don't need to change cars every year to waste the money. But as you know, in Romania, statistically, actually, 95.3% of the Romanian population owns their properties. They don't rent. It's not like US, where 64% of the population rent here. So the market is a little bit different, and the culture is a little bit different. So because of that, I decided to buy a home, any home, anything, condo, doesn't matter what, because it was embedded in my mind that I have to own and not rent. So that's where, with my wife in 2009, we acquired our first property. And fast forward to 2023, we are managing about $12 million in real estate. The first property, literally, it's a small condo in a beautiful resort type area, gorgeous place with pool, jacuzzi, and all the amenities. And when you buy condos, it's not really a real estate investment per se, because you have HOA and $500 a month in HOA eats through your profits. But we continue to keep that one first property because it was emotional. It was our first house. And after 10 years, it's also positive cash flow, plus somebody else is paying my mortgage, insurance, property tax, and so on. So because of that, we kind of, was also good timing in 2009, where it was at the bottom of the market conditions, when everything dropped down to the market. This was short sell also, so we got a good deal on it. And we quickly outgrow that property, and we went, within 3.5 years, we remodeled it and wanted to keep going and acquire a different property, like more a backyard. We have a backyard, more bedrooms, and a house, detached house, because our financials improved just a little bit, not too much. And we were like, okay, maybe we could move into a house. So by chance, when you move, you have the option to sell the current property and then make the purchase with down payment. And our agent at that time, and that's one of the factors that actually is very important when you structure your real estate. It's your team, and the real estate agent, it's critical member of your team. And I remember we struggled to buy the second property and keep the first one, because it's never, like in the beginning we were down actually about $600-700 a month on that condo just to keep it afloat with the rent. And but we listened to our agent and looked at his history in real estate in US for the last 30 years and his guidance, and quickly realized that this is just a moment. It's a temporary couple of years probably, when we will be upside down on the condo, and within a couple of years we should be able to turn a profit on the condo from a monthly income, and then potentially jump to something else and repeat the same formula. So our formula, it's very simple. Like we purchased the house, we live in the house, we remodel, as we will live in that house for the rest of our lives. That's how I usually remodel the house. Some I do overkill, some I think about that I'm gonna move, and I do still overkill, because it's just we love the place. Every property we buy where the intent is to live there. The schools are great, and we could live there the entire life. So with that in mind, every house, with almost every property we bought, we lived in it for a couple of years, typically around like no more than 6. One was 6.5, because it was really nice, very close to the ocean. But the rest of them, like typically around 3.5 years. And this is because that's the time frame which, with our salaries, the W-2, we remodel. So we use our W-2. We never stop working because we own properties or because we own a few $1 million in real estate. We continue to work W-2s, uh, and use that money to fuel our real estate for the future. And we are not looking at short-term gains. Like our plan is to acquire in premium locations, A+ locations, like right around the beach, very close with great schools, where we know in time prices will continue to go up, rent will continue to go up. And because we buy as a primary residence, we locked in the past. Now things are changing, obviously. We locked in at very low rates, like I call it free money from the bank, and why pay the house off? Like another culture from Romania is like, oh, you don't have a house paid off. Well, I don't want to have a house paid off.
Absolutely. I need to
Doesn't
leverage my money. Yeah.
doesn't make any sense to pay that off, because if I don't have that interest I can write off against my W-2, then I pay taxes, and instead of paying taxes, I prefer to pay to keep the mortgage alive, because it's like free money from the bank. So that's typically how was our start, but we didn't know we are getting into like a business. We just loved the property so much that we felt really bad to let it go. That was
Okay. Now, I want to stop you for one quick second, if I can pause you for a second. Question here is, did you take the 30-year mortgages or you took the 15-year mortgages?
so I bounced between the two. So originally we went with 30 years because every property we purchase at the limit, meaning our income double to justify the debt to income ratios, and we always shoot for the sky, like the most, except the first property, because we were very scared. The bank approved us for, let's say, 350, and we only wanted to pay 200. We end up paying 233 on that condo, and that's one of the mistakes. I wish I would have buy 350 2 bedrooms in that location, because now it will be better to rent, better overall. But then moving forward, we always shoot for the roof, like the maximum we can get from the bank. If they give us 350, we'll buy 350. If they give us a little bit more, there's a little fly here, got rid of it. We always shoot for the maximum the bank will give us. So, and when you do that, then it's hard. It's hard for down payment. It's hard for debt to ratios incomes. You have to stay in check with your credit cards, with, if you have a car payment, and but you make it work. And we did purchase the second one, forced ourselves, and then continue with the third one. And at one point, around, I don't know, 3, 4, 5th property, we realized that we are actually, because we are keeping them and we don't sell them, now we end up with tenants, obviously. So we end up with a number of tenants, and the tenants is like, now you're running a business, because tenants have their needs. And so we quickly realized that we need to think more as a business, more than this is a house that I own and it's more like a vacation house. It's not a vacation house. You have people there, they complain, you have to fix stuff, you have to have legal documents, proper legal documents, in case of issues. So because of that, I start to learn everything I could about business entities, and protection of assets and growth, and lawyers and so on. So around that time frame, with property number 4 or so, I looked into forming this, like, how do we want to structure our business? And what I have noticed, there are many ways you can structure a business. Like literally, there were so many options that your head spins if you just keep reading about it and keep listening to everyone. So ultimately, you have to kind of structure the business as you go and not overdo it. I think the most important is, if you overdo it and you do LLCs, like obviously a business structure such as LLC can provide liability protection, tax benefits and so on. But when you have a couple of properties, 2, 3 properties, there's not much tax benefits like that an LLC will provide. Like you barely break even, and even without an LLC, you still can do write-offs. Like the regular, you don't need an LLC to do write-offs. Like you can do write-offs just as simple as being in your name, or the ideal you don't keep it in your name. So then the question is, what do you do? So if you don't go overboard and do LLC under LLC under like all the levels,
like the serious LLCs you're talking about, yeah.
Like you could now, let's say you do all that, and the good lawyers still can go after your properties, even if they are they have multiple layers of LLCs. You're just paying here in California, it's $800 a year for each LLC. So you put 10 properties in LLC, that's $8,000 a year just to pay the fee for LLC, and another $1,000 for the top LLC, and another $1,000 for the shell. It's just, you can't just do it that way. And once you put it in LLC, if you're leveraged to buy another property, some banks won't even look at it. They won't take in consideration. So they have to take it out of the LLC and then apply for a new loan. And so I talked to banks that we did deals with and learned from them, as well as my friends. And we realized that you don't want to keep it on your name, but you don't want to go overboard because you're not that big. When you have 100 properties or 50 plus, okay, things are getting more interesting, and you're managing, let's say, $100 million in real estate. Fine, then you can start to hire, on a payroll, some lawyers, and you structure it different, obviously, because now you have maybe you need an LLC for different type of write-offs because you're managing a big portfolio. So for us, the magic was the magic structure to say it was put in a trust. Like go away from being in your name and do like one trust and a will. Obviously, you always want to have a will, which is a touchy subject, especially when you talk to people in our country. You don't talk about wills. You don't talk about you are dying and what you do after you die.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
But that's as simple as that. And on top of that, then it's important to have like an umbrella liability, like insurance, to cover basically the trust and the standard insurance levels. So at the minimum, like I would say, property number one could be in your name. Doesn't matter. It's too small to to be in a trust or in an LLC. But because you have the option and it's not relatively inexpensive, at the minimum, even property number one, start with a trust. Just form a trust there. I did myself everything. I didn't hire lawyers for stuff like this. That it's legalzoom.com. That it's very affordable, like a couple $100. You can do a trust. You can do a will, a package. They send you a beautiful, and it's very easy to do it. They guide you through the entire process. You just have to read and answer their questions, and in a couple hours you have a trust set up, and it stands in the front of a judge as good as any lawyers will make one for you for $3,000, for example. Because I did look up, and then they send you the package. You go, you notarize, you sign, and all that. So now, every time you buy a property, it's easy because the banks, they ask you. It's a simple question. Do you want to put your property in your name or in a trust? So you give the trust name, and then the property goes into the trust. And that's
okay,
how.
Hold on 1 second. I gotta stop you for a quick second here. I want to put a disclaimer that this is not legal advice. This is not. Just for everybody out there. This is just an experience that we're sharing. This is what we witnessed. This is what we did. This is what Sorin did. And please consult with your attorney if you have one. Please consult with your accountant and take this as it is, just an example of what we did.
Absolutely. And I did make that statement in the beginning, like what we did might not work for everybody. Like you need to find your way of how you structure your business, because it's also based on the state where you are. Each state has different laws and the cost associated with that. So yes, obviously it's not intended for do as I do. It's more intended as an example what can be done. And for us, the trust worked, and we with that we actually formed a team to help out with the business now, because you can't do this alone. So we quickly put together a team of people that we trusted. And my wife is an accountant, so she is doing all the accounting, including taxes on the entire business, including W-2s, like everything we do. So that's our CPA, if you will. It's always advisable to consult with a CPA because they know the laws. Each state is different, but you should have an accountant that you trust. Now, I think one of the questions I keep hearing a lot of times is, do you hire a bookkeeper to keep,
Yes, that's big. That's something that I'm interested in, because I don't have one, and I slack on it, and then it's very difficult to puzzle pieces together. Now I'm going back 3 years, and I can't remember everything that happened in this time frame.
So the short answer is yes and no. Like if you are like Silvius, that you can keep up with everything, then the answer should be yes. Like accounting is very important, and it's not important today or tomorrow or yesterday. It's important when you get audited. That's the only, and plus it's also important when you go and do your taxes, every year, because you make the life of the CPA, that the person who's doing the taxes, a lot easier. So with us, I married an accountant, so we don't hire a bookkeeper.
Absolutely. Okay.
And on top of that, I am a little bit of an OCD, so I like to be everything, in line. Like every time there is a maintenance request, I log in, and I leverage. Like I use technology to help me with day-to-day life. So, for example, all our properties, we use apartments.com to do everything, like in setting up the tenants. My agent is doing the initial screening and listing the property and showing it. But once we made a deal with potential tenants, then I take over and I set them up in apartments.com. It's a free tool. Don't pay anything. The tenants don't pay anything. And I set up my bank informations, and when they make the payments, go straight to my bank. Yes, there is a delay, 3 to 5 business days to get your money. But I put in a contract. The payment is due on the 1st. After the 5th, there is a 6% fee for late fee. Just like everywhere you rent, it's a fee if you don't pay on time. And as long as they made a payment by the 5th, if I get it by the 9th, it's fine. Like I just make my payments accordingly. Like pay all the mortgages on the 15th, for example. So then the money should be in the bank by the time I need to make the payments. And it's very easy to track with apartments.com. If the tenant calls for a maintenance, even they can go directly to apartments.com and put a maintenance request. I get a notification, or they call me, text me, because I'm managing all my properties myself. Now I'm managing the marketing or out of it, like the administrative part. But I do have like some things I do myself to save some money, but some things that are over my skill set, I do hire, and I have some handymans that are being with us for 4 or 5 years, or just generally it's an emergency. I call emergency plumbing to stop a leak or things like that. And in apartments.com, then I track everything that what happens, and I post pictures. The tenant gets informed of the ticket. There is a copay after 30 days for everything that it's requested. I put an expense there for the tenant, so they are there. There is no guessing. Like we eliminate the guessing out of the equation and makes everybody's life a lot easier. With apartments.com, you can go even further. I can do screening, I can post the properties online, but I use that my real estate agent, which I pay commissions, whatever it is, anywhere from 2.5 to 5% on each property a year of the income. So that's basically with that structure, and then from there you do need we have an agency that takes care of all the insurance. It's an insurance broker that we've been using for a number of years, and we shopped around, went from one to another one until we clicked with one that we like. And for the last 7-8 years, me and all my friends, we have about $80 million in real estate that we go with that agency, and they take care of us. So, and this is very important because if you try to save some money by going multiple insurances, it's very difficult. Like it's difficult overall. Like when I try to, I'm working right now to get a HELOC, and every time you apply for a HELOC, they ask you for all these documents. So imagine going into 20 websites to download the insurance policy. It's kind of, I can do that, but that takes time. And rather, I just send an email to these brokers, say, hey, I need the policy declaration page for all my properties. And within 24 hours, I have an email with all the properties. And all I did was send an email.
Yes, I agree with you 100% there. I also have one agent that I work with, and what I want to touch base with you a little bit, I want to take you back for a second.
Sure.
You mentioned umbrella coverage. Can you please explain a little bit what it means? Because some people know, some people don't. I know it's common sense and common knowledge. You find it on Google, but you have cars, right? You got 2 cars.
Yep.
It starts from there. Then you have your business that has an insurance, right? The insurance of the business, and then the houses, individual, they have property insurance. And then on top of that is the umbrella coverage, right?
Yeah, the business doesn't have insurance, so the property itself has its mandatory insurance. And insurance is one of these things that it's never enough. Like the insurance is something I don't gamble with. For properties, for cars, so far, knock on wood, it was all good, but you never know. And I'd rather be covered than uncovered. So umbrella insurance, it's just as it states, is basically an insurance on top of your insurance. And again, like umbrella is not mandatory to have it, and it's not mandatory to have a lot of umbrella insurance, like a big policy. So based on your portfolio, like typically the way I do, for me, it's about 10% of the portfolio I have an umbrella insurance for. Let's say you have $10 million in policy, in properties, then I will do $1 million umbrella insurance. And this is, let's say there's something happen and my regular insurance doesn't cover, or there is a shortage. Let's say I have I don't know, whatever, 500,000 in policy, and the bill is for 800,000. So the difference between 500,000 to 800,000, I don't have to come up with that one from my pocket. So then the umbrella insurance will kick in and take care of that, because it's design and the verbiage is spelled into the contract such way that the umbrella insurance takes over after the first insurance doesn't cover anymore. So yes, and umbrella insurance costs like $1 million policy. It's probably around $500 a year.
Yes.
If you do, you can do more. Like you can do up to $5 million policy, but you just pay more. So it's really, it's not something that you must do. It's something that it's more additional peace of mind that you sleep better.
Yes, thank you for bringing that up. On the business side, so I'm asking you now because you have more experience than I do in this scenario with trust, because I don't have a trust set up yet. So on the business side, I have an LLC, and I provide a service, and I know I need insurance for the LLC.
Right.
And then because I provide a service, but in your case, you're not really providing a service when you're managing the property by yourself, because you're managing by yourself, you said, right?
Well, so
necessary to have insurance there?
right. So like what service I'm providing? I'm providing a property for rent, and like if there is issues, then I go and do the fix the issues. But technically, I'm not selling, like it's not like a regular business where I sell a product to hundreds of thousands of millions of people. I don't have employees like on a payroll. Yes, I work with other people. I work with real estate agents, contractors, handymans, and so on. But they're not on my payroll, so I don't need to cover for that. If I will have an LLC and I'll have employees like a bookkeeper, like contractors or somebody that takes care of, let's say you have an apartment building with 50 units or so, and you need a regular maintenance person on the payroll, then yes, then it probably it's better to have an LLC because it can just deal with calling handymans to unclog, pipes, every couple of weeks, or change lights, or fix electrical, or so for that, then probably an LLC is good to incorporate because you have an employee that you are paying, and then you need insurance, and you need payroll, then you need. It's a lot more than just insurance, and it's a whole business structure. But you kind of have to fit the business within the structure. If in my case, I can manage the few calls that I get throughout a month easy with the team that I put together, but not on payroll team. It's more team I work with. A simple example is a tenant calls and, hey, I don't have hot water anymore. Something is wrong. So I put a maintenance request and I go there myself as soon as I can, within 24 hours, or usually I go because all my properties, it's another structure that we create. I only buy close to me, like half an hour. 1 hour. I don't want to go too far. I want to drive within half an hour and be close to the properties. And I go check, and yes, let's say the water heater needs to be changed. Like it's always good for you to check because otherwise people might take advantage of you. And maybe you can fix it very quick for $100 by just lighting up the pilot or free. Or and if you send somebody else, they will say, hey, you need to change it because it's broken, and then it's $3,000. Or things like this. That's why I prefer to be the first contact they call. I assess myself. I am a good handyman myself, if you will, because I like to do this stuff. I like to take care of my properties. And then I schedule, then I call, if I cannot fix it, then I call the army and I say, hey, plumber number 1 who's on my list, go there, how soon you can go there? I need to change the water heater. Okay, and they go and they change it.
Well, I'm going over my list of questions here, and you kind of eliminated one by one all the questions that I had because you're not using a bookkeeper. One of the questions was, should we hire on the first purchase deal? Absolutely. If you don't know how to do it, absolutely hire. But if you're handy like you are, then keep it. Are you doing your own taxes? And you said yes. You're doing your own taxes because you guys are doing everything in-house, the bookkeeping, right? And
right, and even there, like I am convinced if I will hire, for example, an experienced CPA that does this for a living, does taxes, knows how to manipulate taxes, like I'm convinced that probably will get a bigger discount on the taxes. But it's another one where my wife actually, she likes to have a hand into what happens within the taxes. Like she's very conservative. She wants to make sure like we act as business partners in that deal, actually. Like if I don't give her a receipt, she doesn't write it off. So sometimes, you want to keep writing off stuff to get a break, but she acts more not as a wife then, she acts more as a partner. And it's like, hey, you don't give me a receipt, I'm not putting that, because I know you want another $500 off, but if we get audited, then we both will look like idiots in front of an auditor. So, which is a good check and balance. Like, she won't let me go overboard to just write things off if there is no evidence. So, where if you go to some CPAs, they probably know some different ways to manipulate taxes, still be within the legal department, legal terms, and save you potentially even more. So, like, technically what I've noticed, if you try to do yourself, don't do it because you want to cut costs, like not pay the $800 on the CPA, which is usually for the cost, let's say $1,000 on a $10 million, $12 million portfolio. Don't do it because of that. Do it because you want to do it, because you like it, you want to have your hands into what's happening with your receipts and everything else. Because I promise you, if you do it with a CPA, they will save you the $1,000. Like, I went through CPAs just to consult for, just to see if we are actually fooling ourselves, not to do it CPA. And there were ways to even cut more taxes and get more money back. And we're still not doing it because we want to do ourselves.
I was going to ask you about a couple other things here, because you're doing it yourself. Do you do any cost segregation study on your properties? Because you're definitely over the leverage. I mean, the number. It's usually 350,000 or more per property. That's tax advantages as far as I know on that side. If you do cost segregation, are you depreciating upfront your properties now that you're buying your rentals instead of doing a regular depreciation on 27.5 years?
No, so we've been doing this for from beginning, and I think my wife is using TurboTax, and she just follows the standard depreciation 27 and a half. Okay. And goes by whatever keep it simple. Like, we don't depreciate upfront. We don't. There are some things that I think she is depreciating. Like, for example, if we do a major remodel, like a major work on a property, there are obviously project depreciations and for that year, so it falls within that year. But in general, just standard, nothing out of ordinary.
Okay, that's good to know, because my questions of structures came up when I started learning about these procedures, and these are sophisticated procedures. These are not things that you can do in-house, or at least I cannot do it, or maybe that's why I was asking you guys if you're doing it. They were being presented to me because, hey, listen, you purchased this huge property using it for Airbnb purposes, which is mine, which is another business within the business. And now we can depreciate the property up front. You take the rehab money and the money from the government that cuts you a specific check for that whole amount, and then you can use it. The catch 101 is that they're going to do a depreciation recapture when you sell the property. So instead of 27 years, you depreciate it up front in 1 year if you have an Airbnb, all of it.
I just learned something new. So it's beneficial for both of us. Like, this is the thing where I mentioned probably it's better to consult with a CPA because I am convinced that we leave dollars on the table when we do our taxes. And at one point, I think for us, it got too high, too fast to worry about CPAs, and especially my wife was there to do it. And at one point, I think we will also migrate to a CPA, but it's another member of the team that I need to be comfortable with. Like, this is one after the real estate agent, the CPA, it's equally important. And I'm not just going to anybody. Like, I need to find either a friend that's CPA that's doing this, or somebody that knows this and it's in my best interest. Because there are CPAs that will just want to get the money, and then you won't see.
Well, as far as I know, I can say this much, and I've been challenged with this for the past few years. You must have a CPA that has real estate background, real estate knowledge, and must be an investor as well.
Yeah, exactly.
He has to have a portfolio at least your size, not smaller, bigger maybe,
Yeah,
because that's the only way he's going to understand everything you're doing and what you're trying to get and your final goal. And
agree.
that's my understanding. But it's I've been challenged with this task for over 5 years now, and it's not easy to find somebody. I went from person to person to person. Luckily, I have somebody right now that I'm working with. It's been a roller coaster up and down because of my skills. I did not have a bookkeeping skills and not even a good memory because COVID hit and so many things going on, and I didn't keep track records the right way. But
And
I'm
that's
learning.
like if you do the bookkeeping yourself, that it's important to leverage tools. Like my friend, for example, who has a way bigger portfolio than me, he's still doing bookkeeping by himself, has a CPA that he's doing the taxes with, but he's even more OCD than me. So he's using QuickBooks and he's entering everything in QuickBooks, and at the end of the day, he just plugs in a jump key and downloads the whole year and goes to a CPA. But everything, then it's very important to keep track of every receipt, and it's uploaded into the QuickBooks and enter the transaction when it happens. And the problem is if you don't do it when it happens, it just 3 weeks go by and you had 20 transactions that you didn't enter, and then don't remember them, and you just forget, and then it's waste of money that you don't get back.
Absolutely, definitely. That's something very important. Yes. What are the tips or advice you have on best practices? You mentioned apartments.com, which I had no idea you can leverage this way, and I really appreciate it. For anybody out there listening, this is the great free tool, definitely. You mentioned TurboTax that you guys are working with. I wasn't curious in using it ever. I always used a company or a CPA or somewhere, but I was a W-2 guy. I only had one form. It was my paycheck.
Yeah.
So it was that simple.
Yeah. And we started with TurboTax because we were exactly the same. We had a W-2. I did my taxes when we didn't have any properties myself. In TurboTax, it was simple. You input your W-2. And as we grew in properties, then we just use it. And now you have all the data there. It's very easy. We pay the premium on TurboTax, but historically you just can import from last year, and they have imagine you have the entire history for the last 14 years, and it's so easy with a click of a button. And then just imagine entering all the properties over again with addresses, with it's a nightmare.
I am going through that nightmare as we speak. I have issues. We're going back 3 years. I had one of the projects that, just like you mentioned, it was not included at all into my taxes on a previous year. So I'm going back 3 years now because I found about $200,000 there that they were not accounted for and not entered for that project for that specific year. And my issue was a little bit more complicated. I purchased the property under an LLC. It was an initial flip. Then I lost the builder. The builder left. The supposedly tenant that I'm going to have left as well. And then I moved into the property and I assumed that mortgage under my personal name. So when I did taxes, all these events happened in 1 year. So then when I did taxes, the account is like, well, it's your primary residence. You can't do none of that.
So that's, to me, what you are explaining is something that I don't advise to do when, like, you are overcomplicating your life. And maybe it's also from my profession. Like I am employed in W-2 as a manufacturing person. Like I'm actually in startups. I like startups. So I jump from a start every 6-7 years. I move to another startup and build up an entire factory from scratch. And this is class 2 medical device, very complicated. And there I learned lean manufacturing. So lean manufacturing is something where you simplify things. And I apply lean manufacturing in my life. I apply in my garage, my label everything. Like tools, they need to be where they need to be. Just like in a factory, if you don't have that screwdriver, you can build a product and you waste time, you overpay. So I apply the same thing in business. Like you have to simplify it and not complicate it. The way you described, from what I understand, you started very complicated from the beginning. Try to basically you hire the CEO, CFO, all the C levels at the beginning, and then build up the business. That's a little bit too complicated for not having the experience. Flip it, do it first, prove that you can get a couple properties, manage them, and then start to build up the structure, because you learn so much how a structure should be, and it's not one size fits all. It's based on the state where you are, but structure alone is not the only thing. To me, there are a couple things. It's structure of the business, it's the team you have, and then it's the tools you use. And the tools, this is where you stick with tools over the years, because it makes your life much easier. Like I said, apartments.com, every property it's in there, every tenant, very easy to just, I get reminders. Hey, at least it's expiring. I get me and the tenant reminders. I go and I renew directly in apartments.com. TurboTax, the whole history is there. LegalZoom, even with LegalZoom, when you keep buying properties, guess what? Maybe some lawyers will say you have a lifetime of upgrades, because you buy a property, you add to your trust, well, that costs money. So some lawyers charge you, some lawyers give you a package, you pay the magic $399, $3,999, $95, and they give you lifetime updates. Some don't. So with LegalZoom, everything is in there, all the properties, and then I just go and add one more. They send me a new book that I notarize, and I pay $39. And I have
Wow, that's awesome.
I have a new trust that it's up to date. And when I usually review it once a year with you and my wife, and we look at the trust and we say, okay, we change maybe, and even bank accounts, we don't really change them unless they close them to somebody hacks or things like that. But we try to keep it extremely simple, because we have kids, and it's complicated enough when you have kids.
Yep, I know. I got two of those as well.
Exactly. Same age, I think.
Yes.
5.5 and 2.5 are mine. So boys, full of energy. And we try everything else to keep it simple. Although I was just chatting with my agent this morning, and because we were talking about the property that is coming up. We just had one that we leased last week, and one maybe is coming up. Maybe the tenant will stay, but there are some issues that I complain and things like that. And I addressed them, but he mentioned, he made a comment. He's like, well, think about you do just real. At one point, we will be able to do real estate without W2, like if we want. Like it will get to a point where we both should be able to just do real estate full time. We are not even close to that point. Like we still have to work, and that's because of the choices we did in life. Meaning, we bought a property that the profit or the cash flow from the other properties doesn't cover, because we like to live in this neighborhood and in this size of a property. And my agent was very interesting. He mentioned, well, at one point you'll have the option to either deal with 9 to 5 and do with the people at 9 to 5. That it's stressful. Work is not easy, right? Especially when you design, whatever work you do, construction, manufacturing, accounting, you have bosses, they have bosses, there is drama, there is issues, projects are late, right? And he said, or you don't do 9 to 5, you have more freedom you already have a structure in place, but you still have to do with tenants. You have to deal with people. It's just a little bit different. It's not like, hey, you go away from both of these and you are done, you retire.
Yeah, you're not gonna sail away into the sunset.
You can't. Like you can't retire from something like this, even if you hire a property manager. Like usually this is something that you sign up for very, very long time. But if you if you have a choice, you do a W-2 9 to 5, or you do a real estate and you fight for 20 years to build your portfolio. And we are at 14 years, and that's my goal. Around 20 years, I want to maintain my lifestyle and be able to go slower on the W-2, maybe a part-time, because I still like it, but focus more on the real estate. Not retire, like people say, you live on the beach somewhere and drink margarita all day. No, that doesn't, it's a good book. Actually, it's an amazing book. I just finished reading. It's the Baby Steps Millionaire from
The Baby
David.
Steps Millionaire. I did not read that one. The Baby Steps.
The Baby Steps Millionaire from David Ramsey. It applies to everybody. Now, it's different concept. It talks about what to do in the beginning, and it's very true. Like, get rid of debt, save some money for emergencies, and then start to invest. And some people, they do get rid of debt, but then stop to invest. Like, they just spend again. So, and you can be a millionaire, and not to make a difference. Like, even if you have $10, $20 million in properties, you are not a billionaire. Like, it's a huge difference between what a billionaire does and what a millionaire does. Like, a millionaire is still working, is still saving money on flights, is still like everything millionaire does. You cannot have 5 properties like a billionaire in each country. One in different countries that you don't rent. So I think that's very, very important. And another book that I want to give you, actually, I love that book. It's one of the best, actually. A Man Thinketh by James Allen. So A Man Thinketh. It's an incredible book that I won't give you any pointers, but go ahead and read it.
Yeah, that one I went through. That one I read before. Yeah, it was a recommendation from one of my mentors in 2016, I remember.
Oh, it's an amazing book.
Born, that's his favorite book. And when I had a chance to ask him the question, he said, as men think it, just go ahead and get it. I have it. It's in the library behind me. I'm going to revisit, by the way. That's a really good one. I really thank you for your time. I appreciate it. We have a hard stop in a couple minutes. I wish you all the best. Thank you so much for coming back to us, and I really appreciate you. Yes, if there's anything we can help you along the way, please reach out. I'm always available, and thank you so much.
No, thank you.
All right.
Thank you. Appreciate, and looking forward for future discussions. Always good to talk to you.
Same here. Thank you so much. Take care. Have a good one. Bye-bye.